Elara Winters adjusted her wedding veil in the ornate mirror, fingers trembling slightly as they traced the delicate lace. The royal palace of Blackwood Kingdom bustled with activity beyond her chamber, doors servants rushing with flower arrangements, chefs preparing the feast, and nobles arriving in their finery. In just 2 hours, she would become Queen of Blackwood, wife to King Thorn Blackwood, ruler of the most powerful werewolf pack in the Northern Territories, and not a single soul knew she was human, or so she thought. 7 years of deception had led to this moment. 7 years of careful planning, of learning to mimic werewolf mannerisms, of applying special herbs to mask her human scent, of fabricating a past as the daughter of a distant pack, all to infiltrate werewolf society as a spy for the Human Protection Alliance. "You look beautiful, my lady," said Mira, her handmaid, adjusting the train of Elara's ivory gown. "The king will be speechless." Elara forced a smile. Mira, when she'd first arrived in Blackwood territory, posing as a refugee from a decimated pack, she never imagined she'd catch the eye of the Alpha King himself. Her mission had been simple: gather intelligence on werewolf defenses and weaknesses, then return to the human territories. But then she met Thornfierce, intelligent and unexpectedly kind beneath his intimidating exterior, and she fell in love. The irony wasn't lost on her. The human spy, falling for the very werewolf king she was sent to betray. For years, she'd fed the Alliance harmless information, while protecting Blackwood's true secrets. But the Alliance was growing impatient, demanding more valuable intelligence, or threatening to expose her. A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. "Enter," she called, expecting another servant with wedding preparations instead. Kira Blackwood, the king's younger sister, slipped into the room. Her golden eyes, the trademark of royal werewolf bloodlines, studied Elara with unusual intensity. "Mira, leave us," Kira commanded. The handmaid bowed and exited quickly. Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. Of all the royal family, Kira had always been the most suspicious of her. "Nervous about the ceremony?" Kira asked, circling Elara slowly. "A little," Elara admitted. "It's not every day one marries a king, indeed." Kira stopped directly behind her, especially when one is not what she claims to be. Ice flooded Elara's veins. She kept her expression neutral in the mirror. "I'm not sure what you mean. I think you do." Kira moved to face her. "My brother may be blinded by love, but I've been watching you, Elara, 7 years, and not once have I seen you shift. Always, and excuse the moon's position, an old injury, a headache." "Some wolves prefer privacy when shifting," Elara countered, the practiced lie, flowing easily, "and some aren't wolves at all." Kira's hand shot out, gripping Elara's wrist. Her claws extended slightly, pricking Elara's skin. A true werewolf would react instinctively to this threat. Their eyes would glow. Claws would emerge. "Yet you remain entirely human." Elara pulled her arm away. "You overstep, princess, do I? Then prove me wrong. Shift, right now." The room seemed to shrink around Elara. 7 years of careful deception, crumbling in an instant. "I don't answer to you," she said coldly. "No, but you answer to Thorn, and he deserves to know what creature he's really taking as his queen." Kira moved toward the door. "I'm giving you one chance, Elara. Call off this wedding and disappear, or I'll tell my brother everything." After Kira left, Elara collapsed into a chair, mind racing. She could run. She had emergency supplies hidden, contacts who could smuggle her back to human territories. But leaving meant never seeing Thorn again, never explaining, letting him believe she'd simply abandoned him on their wedding day. The thought was unbearable. A soft knock interrupted her panic. "My lady," it was Mira. Again, "The king requests a moment with you." Elara froze. "The king? But it's bad luck," he insists. "My lady," he says, "it's urgent." Heart pounding, Elara nodded. "Send him in." Moments later, Thorn Blackwood filled the doorway, magnificent in his formal attire, black and silver. with the royal crest emblazoned on his chest. His dark hair was pulled back, emphasizing the sharp angles of his face, and those penetrating silver eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "Thorn," she breathed. "What's wrong?" He closed the door behind him, his expression unreadable. "I needed to see you. Is everything all right?" He approached slowly, towering over her. At 6'4", he was intimidating to most, but Alara had never feared him until now. "I received an interesting message this morning," he said, his deep voice carefully controlled, "from someone claiming to have proof that my bride is not who she claims to be." Alara's blood ran cold. "Thorn, they say you're a spy, a human spy." His eyes searched hers. "Tell me it isn't true, Alara." The moment stretched between them, taut with 7 years of secrets. She could lie. Again she'd become so good at it, but looking into his eyes, she couldn't bring herself to add one more deception. "I was," she whispered, "when I first came here." The pain that flashed across his face was worse than any anger could have been. He stepped back, as if struck. "But Thorn, please, you have to understand. Understand what—" His voice was dangerously quiet. "That the woman I've loved for years, the woman I was about to make my queen, has been lying to me from the moment we met. That everything between us was part of your mission." No tears spilled down her cheeks. "That's not true." "Yes, I came here as a spy, but I fell in love with you. I've been protecting Blackwood, feeding false information back to the Alliance, and I'm supposed to believe that." His laugh was bitter. "You're human, Alara, our natural enemy." "I'm still me," she pleaded. "The same woman you've known all these years. Are you?" He moved to the window, staring out at the kingdom that would have been hers. "I don't even know who that is anymore." Alara approached him cautiously. "Thorn, I love you. That has never been a lie." He turned to her, his expression hardening. "If you truly love me, then tell me everything. No more secrets, no more lies. I want the complete truth. Alara, who sent you? What was your mission? What information have you passed along?" She hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I'll tell you everything." And so she did. How the Human Protection Alliance had recruited her after werewolves killed her family in a border dispute. How she'd trained for years to infiltrate werewolf society. How her mission changed when she fell in love with him. When she saw that werewolves weren't the monsters humans believed them to be. When she finished, silence hung heavy between them. "What will you do now?" she finally asked. Thorn's face was impassive. "The wedding is in less than 2 hours. Hundreds of guests are already here, including alphas from every major pack. Are you going to expose me?" His silver eyes studied her. No relief flooded through her. "Thorn, the wedding will proceed as planned," he continued, his voice taking on an edge she'd never heard before. "You will become my queen. But know this, Alara." He stepped closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "While I may still love you, trust is another matter entirely. From this moment forward, you will be watched. You will prove your loyalty to me and to Blackwood. And if I ever suspect you've betrayed us again—" He left the threat unfinished, but Alara understood. She had her chance, perhaps her only chance, to truly become part of his world. "I won't let you down," she whispered. "See that you don't." He moved toward the door, then paused. "One more thing, Alara. There's an old legend among werewolves that in rare cases, a human with the right bloodline can be transformed, not through a bite, as humans believe, but through an ancient ritual performed by an alpha king during a blood moon." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" His silver eyes gleamed with something primal. "Tonight is a blood moon, and I am the alpha king. After our vows, you will truly become one of us or die trying." He left her then, standing in her wedding finery, facing a future far different from anything she had imagined. The human bride would soon face her greatest challenge yet, becoming the very creature she had pretended to be for so long. The wedding ceremony passed in a blur for Alara. She spoke her vows mechanically, aware of Thorn's intense gaze and the curious eyes of hundreds of werewolves watching their king marry a woman who, unbeknownst to them, was human. The grand cathedral of Blackwood echoed with ancient werewolf matrimonial songs. The scent of moon lilies and ceremonial incense, heavy in the air. When Thorn placed the royal crown upon her head, declaring her Queen of Blackwood, Ilara felt the weight of it like a physical burden. Not just the gold and jewels, but the responsibility and the deception that had brought her here. Long live the King and Queen of Blackwood. The assembly roared, and Ilara forced a smile, wondering how many would call for her execution if they knew the truth. The reception that followed was lavish, with tables groaning under platters of rare meats, barely cooked, as werewolves preferred. Ilara had learned to stomach such fare years ago, another small deception in her elaborate charade. She sipped wine and accepted congratulations, all while feeling Kira's suspicious glare from across the room. "You look troubled, my queen," Thorn murmured, appearing at her side as she stood alone for a moment on the balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The blood moon was rising, casting an eerie crimson glow over the landscape. "I'm thinking about what comes next," she admitted. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes betrayed a complex mix of emotions: love, hurt, determination. "The ritual must be performed at midnight, when the blood moon reaches its zenith. And if it fails," she asked quietly, "then you die." His bluntness was startling. "The transformation is excruciating. Many humans with werewolf ancestry have attempted it throughout history. Few survive." Ilara swallowed hard. "And you're willing to risk my life? Are you not willing to risk it yourself?" he countered. "You've lived among us for 7 years, Ilara. You've claimed to love me, to love Blackwood. If that's true, then becoming one of us should be a gift, not a punishment." Before she could respond, a commotion erupted in the great hall behind them. They turned to see a group of armed guards escorting a man in tattered clothing. His face was bruised, but Ilara recognized him immediately: Julian Hayes. Her contact from the Human Protection Alliance. Her blood ran cold. "Your Majesty," the captain of the guard addressed Thorn. "This human was caught attempting to scale the eastern wall. Be carried this." The guard held out a small metal device's signal transmitter used by Alliance spies. Thorn's expression darkened. "Bring him forward." Julian was forced to his knees before them. His eyes widened when he saw Ilara in her royal finery. "Well," Thorn's voice was dangerously soft, "it seems we have an uninvited guest at our wedding feast." The hall had fallen silent, hundreds of werewolves watching the scene unfold. Ilara could feel their collective hostility toward the human intruder. "What is your name, human?" Thorn demanded. Julian remained silent, his defiant gaze fixed on Ilara. She could read the accusation in his eyes. "Traitor." "He won't speak, Your Majesty," the guard said, "but we found this in his possession as well." He handed Thorn a folded paper. Thorn opened it, his expression growing darker as he read. Without a word, he handed the paper to Elara. It was a message from the Alliance leadership. Extraction planned for Agent Winter. Signal confirmation of position. Alliance forces prepared for infiltration. Agent Winter, her code name. They were coming for her. Tonight of all nights. "Do you know this man, my queen?" Thorn asked, his voice carrying throughout the silent hall. All eyes turned to Ilara. This was a test, she realized. Thorn was giving her the chance to prove her loyalty, or condemn herself. She looked at Julian, the man who had been her handler for 7 years, the man who had trained her, who had family and friends waiting for him. If she denied knowing him, Thorn would surely execute him as a spy. But if she admitted the connection, "I've never seen him before," she said clearly, meeting Julian's eyes as they widened in shock and betrayal. "But I recognize the Alliance insignia on that transmitter. He's clearly a human spy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Thorn's expression remained unreadable. "What would you suggest we do with him, my queen?" he asked. Another test. The traditional punishment for human spies in werewolf territories was death upon public and brutal. To serve as a warning. "Imprison him," she said firmly. "Question him about Alliance plans. He's more valuable alive than dead." Thorn studied her for a long moment before nodding to the guards. "Take him to the dungeons. We'll deal with him after the festivities." As Julian was dragged away, he managed to spit out one word: traitor. The crowd erupted in angry growls at the humans' disrespect toward their new queen. Thorn raised a hand, silencing them. "My friends," he addressed the assembly, "it seems the human territories grow bold, sending spies to infiltrate even our most sacred celebrations. But they will learn that Blackwood remains vigilant and strong." Cheers erupted, but Alara barely heard them. Julian's presence meant the Alliance was planning something big, something that could endanger everyone in the palace, including Thorn. "We must speak privately," she whispered to him with a nod to his advisors. Thorn led her from the hall to his study room. Alara had visited many times during their courtship, but never with such dread. Once the heavy doors closed behind them, she turned to him urgently. "The Alliance is planning an attack. Tonight, Julian's presence confirms it. And you expect me to believe you're not part of this plan?" Thorn's voice was cold. "That this isn't some elaborate scheme to position yourself as queen on the very night your human allies attack. I've had 7 years to betray you, if that was my intention," she countered. "Why wait until our wedding night?" "Perhaps because tonight all the pack leaders are gathered in one place. A perfect target." Alara shook her head frantically. "No. You don't understand. The Alliance doesn't know I've switched loyalties. They think I'm still their agent, waiting for extraction. That message proves it." Thorn paced the room, his powerful frame tense with barely contained fury. "And I'm supposed to trust the word of a woman who has lied to me for our entire relationship?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because despite those lies, I love you, and I love Blackwood. I would die before I let harm come to either." He stopped, studying her with those penetrating silver eyes. "Then, prove it. Tell me exactly how the Alliance would plan such an attack, where they would strike, and how to stop them." Without hesitation, Alara moved to his map table, pointing out the vulnerabilities in the palace defenses, vulnerabilities she had discovered years ago but never reported back to the Alliance. "They'll come through the underground waterways here, and the old servant passages here," she explained. "Small teams, heavily armed with silver weapons. Their goal won't be a full-scale attack. They don't have the numbers. They'll aim to extract me and assassinate as many pack leaders as possible before retreating." Thorn listened intently, calling in his security chief to implement immediate countermeasures based on her information. Guards were dispatched, passages sealed, and traps laid for the would-be attackers. When they were alone again, Thorn approached her slowly. "If you're right about this attack, you will have proven your loyalty in action, not just words. And if I'm wrong," she asked, "then I'll know this was all part of your deception." His expression hardened. "Either way, the ritual will proceed at midnight. If you truly wish to be my queen, you will become one of us in every way." A knock at the door interrupted them. The security chief entered, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, we've captured 3 human infiltrators in the eastern tunnels. They were heavily armed with silver weapons, just as the Queen described." Thorn's eyes flashed to a mixture of surprise and something like respect, crossing his features. "There will be more," she said urgently. "The first team is always a diversion. We've sealed all entrances," the Queen identified. The security chief confirmed. "The palace is secure." Thorn nodded. "Double the guards around the Great Hall. Inform the pack leaders of the situation, discreetly. We don't want to cause panic among the guests." As the security chief departed, distant shouts and the clash of weapons echoed from somewhere in the palace depths. The Alliance attack had begun in earnest. "I should help coordinate the defense," Thorn said, moving toward the door. "I'm coming with you," Alara insisted, gathering her wedding gown in her hands. He paused, studying her. "This isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I chose you over them," she replied firmly. "Besides, I know Alliance tactics better than anyone here." After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Together, they hurried through the palace corridors, toward the command center, where Thorn's military advisors were already gathering for the next hour. Alara worked alongside Blackwood's defenders, identifying likely alliance movements and suggesting countermeasures. When reports came that a team of humans had breached the western wing, she correctly predicted they would head for the armory rather than the Great Hall. As midnight approached, the attack was largely contained. 17 Alliance operatives had been captured, with only 3 werewolf guards suffering minor injuries from silver weapons. "It's time," Thorn said quietly, appearing at her side as she studied the security maps. "The blood moon reaches its zenith in 20 minutes. Ilara looked up at him, suddenly aware that this moment the transformation ritual would determine her entire future. If she survived, she would truly become Thorn's queen, a werewolf, in fact, rather than just pretense. If she failed, "I'm ready," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. He led her through secret passages to an ancient chamber beneath the palace, the sacred ritual space, where Alpha Kings had performed transformations for centuries. The circular room was carved from living stone, with a skylight open to the blood-red moon above. In the center stood an altar of black marble, surrounded by runes etched into the floor. 5 elder werewolves waited there, already shifted into their half-form, the imposing hybrid of human and wolf that represented their true power. Among them stood Kira, her golden eyes watching Ilara with undisguised suspicion. "You still trust her?" Kira demanded of her brother. "After human forces attacked on your wedding night." "She warned us of the attack," Thorn replied. "Her information saved lives. Or she told you just enough to appear loyal while ensuring her own safety," Kira countered. Thorn turned to Ilara. "Remove your crown and gown. The ritual must be performed with nothing between you and the moonlight." Heart-pounding, Ilara obeyed, stripping down to a simple white shift. The stone floor was cold beneath her bare feet as she approached the altar. "Lie down," Thorn instructed, his voice taking on a ceremonial quality. "The ritual is painful, and few humans survive it. This is your last chance to turn back." Ilara met his gaze steadily. "I choose this. I choose you." As she lay upon the cold marble, the blood moon's light streamed through the skylight, bathing her in crimson. Thorn stood over her, now shifting into his half-form, more magnificent and terrifying than any werewolf she had ever seen. His silver eyes glowed with power, his massive form radiating the authority of the Alpha King. "By blood and moon, by fang and claw," he intoned, his voice deeper and rougher in this form. "I call upon the ancient magic of our kind." The elders began a low, haunting chant, circling the altar. Thorn extended one clawed hand, slicing open his palm. Dark blood welled up, dripping onto Ilara's forehead, her lips, her heart. Blood of the Alpha, blood of the King. Transform this human wolfkin. Pain exploded through Ilara's body as the blood touched her skin. She arched off the altar, a scream tearing from her throat. It felt as though her bones were breaking, her skin splitting, her very cells tearing apart and reforming through the haze of agony. She heard Thorn continue the ritual, his voice steady, despite the obvious distress of watching her suffer. The elders' chanting grew louder, the runes on the floor beginning to glow with the same crimson light as the moon above. "Accept this offering," Thorn commanded the ancient powers they invoked. "If her heart is true, if her spirit is strong, grant her the gift of the wolf." Ilara's vision blurred, darkness creeping in at the edges. The pain was unbearable, beyond anything she had imagined possible. She felt herself slipping away, death reaching for her with cold fingers. In that moment, suspended between life and death, she saw a vision, a massive white wolf standing in a snow-covered forest, watching her with intelligent eyes. It approached slowly, circling her, as if judging her worthiness. "Who are you?" she asked in the vision. "I am what you could become," the white wolf replied. "If you are strong enough, if you truly wish it." "I do," Ilara insisted. "I want to live. I want to be with Thorn." The white wolf stopped before her, even knowing the price. "You will never be human again. I haven't been truly human since I fell in love with him," she answered. The wolf seemed to smile. Then take my paw, and we shall become one dot in the ritual chamber. Ilara's body convulsed one final time before going completely still. The elders fell silent. Thorn leaned over her, grief etching his features. He whispered, touching her face with a gentleness that belied his fearsome form. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, her eyes opened, but they were no longer the soft brown they had always been. They glowed a brilliant icy blue. Pain, unlike anything Ilara had ever known, coursed through her body. Her bones cracked and reformed, muscles tore and knit back together, and her skin felt as though it were being flayed from her body. Yet beneath the agony, something else was happening. Power was awakening within her, ancient and primal. Something's wrong, one of the elders muttered. For eyes, they shouldn't be that color. Thorn stepped back as Ilara's body began to change. White fur erupted across her skin, not the typical gray or brown of Blackwood wolves. Her limbs elongated, her face transformed, and within moments, where the human bride had lain, a massive white wolf now stood larger even than some of the elders, with fur like fresh snow and eyes that glowed with an unearthly blue light. Impossible, Kira breathed. She's a lunar wolf. The elders backed away, murmuring in shock and awe. Even Thorn seemed stunned, his silver eyes wide as he beheld his transformed Queen Lunar. Wolves were creatures of legendary werewolves born only during blood moons, said to possess extraordinary powers and a direct connection to the moon itself. None had been seen in the Northern Territories for centuries. Ilara felt strange in her new powerful, wild, yet somehow more herself than she had ever been. Instinctively, she knew how to move, how to balance on 4 legs instead of 2. The world around her was transformed through wolf. Sense, telling stories, sounds revealing secrets, and the pull of the blood moon above like a tangible force. She turned her gaze to Thorn, recognizing him, despite his half-wall form. A low whine escaped her throat as she approached him cautiously, unsure how he would react to this unexpected development. For a moment he remained still. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. Ilara pressed her muzzle against his palm, and a current of energy passed between them, the bond of alpha and mate, now made real through the magic of the transformation. The white wolf returns to Blackwood, one of the elders said solemnly. The ancient prophecy is fulfilled. What prophecy? Thorn demanded, his hand still resting on Ilara's head. The oldest among them, Elder Varys, stepped forward. When darkness threatens to divide the realms of wolf and man, the white wolf shall rise from human form, bridging to worlds and bringing a new era of peace. Kira scoffed. You can't seriously believe she's the wolf of prophecy. She was a human spy, and now she is something else entirely. Elder Varys replied. The moon has chosen her, regardless of her past. A commotion from above interrupted them shouts, and the sounds of fighting echoing down to the ritual chamber. The Alliance, Thorn growled. They've breached the inner palace. Without hesitation, Ilara bounded toward the chamber entrance, her new instincts driving her to protect her pack, her home. Thorn called after her, but she was already racing up the stone steps, faster than she'd ever moved in her human form. She emerged into chaos. A final wave of Alliance operatives had indeed penetrated the palace defenses, taking advantage of the distraction caused by the ritual. They were making their way toward the Great Hall, where many of the pack leaders and their families had gathered. Ilara's new senses detected the scent of silver and wolfsbane weapons designed to kill werewolves. Without conscious thought, she launched herself at the nearest attacker, a man preparing to throw a silver-laced explosive into the crowded hall. Her appearance, massive white wolf, seemingly materializing from nowhere, caused momentary shock among both the Alliance operatives and the werewolf guards. She used that advantage, knocking the man to the ground and sending his weapons skittering harmlessly across the floor. More Alliance fighters turned toward her, weapons raised. One fired a silver-tipped arrow that should have been fatal, but to everyone's astonishment, it seemed to dissolve into moonlight as it touched her fur. "What the hell is that thing?" one of them shouted. Thorn arrived then, flanked by his royal guards, all in their werewolf forms. The fight was brief but fierce, with Alara moving like a creature of myth among the attackers, untouchable, unstoppable. When it was over, the remaining Alliance operatives were captured or had fled. The werewolves gathered around Alara, keeping a respectful distance from the white wolf that had saved them. "Is that the queen?" someone whispered. Thorn approached her, now fully shifted into his wolf forma. Massive black wolf with silver eyes. They stood together, black and white, a striking contrast that somehow seemed perfectly balanced. "Can you shift back?" Thorn's voice echoed in her mind. The alpha's ability to communicate telepathically with pack members now extending to her. Alara wasn't sure. She concentrated, thinking of her human form, and felt the transformation begin. It was easier this time, less painful, as though her body now understood the process. Within moments, she stood before them in human form again. Her white shift somehow restored along with her transformation, but she was changed. Her once brown hair had turned pure white, and her eyes retained that unearthly blue glow. Markings like silver runes traced across her skin where Thorn's blood had touched her during the ritual. Thorn shifted back as well, standing before her in his human form. "You're a lunar wolf," he said, with wonder in his voice. "The rarest of our kind." "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice stronger and clearer than before. "It means the moon chose you for a reason." He took her hands in his. "The Alliance attack tonight was just the beginning. Tensions between humans and werewolves have been building for generations. War is coming, unless someone can bridge both worlds," Alara finished, understanding dawning. "Someone who has lived as human and wolf." The captured Alliance fighters were brought before them, Julian among them. He stared at Alara with a mixture of horror and disbelief. "What have they done to you?" he demanded. "Nothing I didn't choose," she replied calmly. "Julian, this has to stop. The Alliance's fear of werewolves is based on misunderstanding and old prejudices. They're monsters," he spat. "And now you're one of them." "No," she said firmly. "I'm both human and wolf. I understand both sides in a way no one else can, and I will use that understanding to bring peace." Thorn stepped forward. "Take them to the cells. Tomorrow, we'll send a message to the Human Protection Alliance. Not a declaration of war, but an invitation to parley." "They'll never agree," Julian said. Alara smiled slightly. "They will when they learn their agent Winter is now Queen of Blackwoodand, a lunar wolf. My transformation doesn't erase my human past. It builds upon it." Later that night, as the blood moon began to set, Alara stood with Thorn on the palace balcony, looking out over the kingdom that was now truly hers. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked. "Bringing peace between humans and werewolves won't be easy. Centuries of hatred and fear can't be erased overnight." "I know," she replied, "but for the first time, I'm not living a lie."